live. Welcome everyone to Lioness Lifestyle Live.
Absolutely. Welcome everyone. And we are so excited to meet with you this evening.
Go ahead.
Haley, you're up. She's our new host.
I'm up. Hi, you guys. I'm so excited to be here. I am so excited to share this space and get to know some new people. And this is going to be a blast, you guys. I can't wait.
Yeah, and if everyone could go ahead and get your questions ready for our awesome guest. And if you have a question for her, go ahead and put them in the chat with a QQQ or some question marks or something so we can pick those out and make sure they get answered for you. You guys, it's time for my favorite part of the show, the roar of the week. And every week what we do is we go back through the comments that people leave after the live broadcast has ended. We read through those and we choose one to sort of highlight as our roar of the week. So without any further ado, this week's roar of the week is from Our Sufficient Life. She's actually an upcoming guest, you guys. So cool. So she said, Karen here, catching this on replay after being on a meat-based diet for several months now. It amazes me what is normal these days. Gas, bloating, headaches, chronic illness. Docs throwing pharmaceuticals at symptoms and not addressing the root of the problem, processed foods and sugar. As a society, we have strayed so far from our proper diet. Thank you for getting the word out through your show. So excited to be a guest soon. We're excited to meet with you soon too, Karen.
So I am so happy to be introducing our newest lioness, Haley. Her channel is Meat is Where It's At. You probably all know her channel because it's absolutely amazing. And I just wanted to say that unfortunately Lindsay had to leave the show due to scheduling issues, and also she's a very young baby boy who loves his mama and needs him, and she's breastfeeding, and we love Lindsay, and maybe one day she'll like to come hop back on when things are a little smoother for her. But we are so happy to have Haley, and you can get an exclusive interview if you want to get to know her better on Christy's channel at Meeting Wellness. You see it right over there. And that's going to be on December 30th at 12 noon or 3 Eastern, or 12 noon Pacific or 3 Eastern. And then I'm also going to be hopping on there in the last little chunk so you can get to know all three lionesses. But let's introduce our guests. And here she is.
Let's do it.
Hi. Alison Johnson, everybody.
Hi. Well, we're so happy to have you, Alison. And if you would please tell us your health history and how you found carnivore. We want to know all the juicy details.
Okay. So I grew up, in the 80s. I'm about 48 years old. So I grew up eating cereal for breakfast, standard American diet. I did not have health issues as a child, and I didn't have weight issues, but I was always very emotionally attached to food. So, most of the people in my family were always trying to lose weight. So I do remember in high school, I went to a Weight Watchers meeting, and, this is to learn foundational good health and that kind of thing. So I really didn't struggle losing weight, but I was never as skinny as I wanted to be. And just, I didn't gain a lot of weight, when I went to college or that kind of thing. And if I did gain weight, I could lose it really easily by yo-yo dieting, calorie restricting, that kind of thing, because that's just what the healthy thing to do was. I did not eat healthy food growing up. I didn't eat a lot of vegetables or fruit or anything. I just ate a lot of junk. So then when I was 25, I had a really strange episode of like severe vertigo. And the next day I got into a specialist, an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and I was diagnosed with my first autoimmune illness, which was Meniere's disease, which is an inner ear illness. They don't know what causes it. They said I was just advised that I needed to take a diuretic, which a lot of times that's, to keep the inflammation low and keep my system flushed out. It's like a low dose blood pressure medicine also. So I was prescribed that at age 25. And then they said, follow a low salt diet keep your fluid down because it's like an imbalance of fluid inside your inner ear. Avoid caffeine, avoid alcohol, and I was 25, so I was not doing any of that. They also said to avoid processed food, which was the only good advice that they gave. So I went for years living with that. About every 3 to 4 to 6 times a year, I would just have this episode of um, just extreme vertigo. I'm talking debilitating. I can't do anything. I have to lay down in a dark room and just write it out. And it would last hours, like the whole episode would last at least 12 hours. If it happened, I was out of commission for at least a half a day. I'd always get a migraine afterwards, that kind of thing. So I just thought, oh, okay, that's fine. I just have to do that. Then I got married in 2001, or I'm sorry, 2003. I met my husband in 2001. And when I was about 30, and I'd been married a few years, I was like, okay, let's, try to have a baby. And I still was okay with my weight. I hadn't gained a lot or lost a lot, but I didn't get pregnant like at first. I mean, it was maybe 2 months. It was not like I had fertility issues, but I went to the doctor, my cycle, she's like, well, your cycle's 35 days long. Let me do some lab tests. I had a thyroid condition. So I had Graves' disease, which is my symptoms, I was hyperthyroid. And the treatment for that is a radioactive iodine, which is a pill. And you go to nuclear medicine, and a guy comes out in a spacesuit, and he hands you with metal tongs. He hands you a metal test tube, and he says, "Swallow this." That is the treatment because the radioactive iodine deadens, kills the thyroid because the thyroid is sick.
So, did you have any concerns about that when that was happening? Did you think like maybe the doctor, is this healthy? Like, did you have that
Right.
question run through your
Yeah.
mind, or were you kind of like at the time listening fully to the doctor, or were you having those questions?
No, I did think this is kind of weird, but I don't think I totally listened to the doctors. And my mom was a nurse. She's retired now, but my mom was a nurse, and she's very traditional and that kind of thing. And this was 2005. So nobody in my life ever really questioned doctors. It just was the treatment, and they were like, it's fine. It will only be encapsulated in your thyroid. It will only deaden that. So they said, but don't get pregnant for at least 6 months. Do not even try to get pregnant for 6 months because that can affect, because it's a radiation. It's just a radiated medicine. I was like, okay. Well, 6 months later, I got pregnant and easily got pregnant, and my daughter's 17. So, but that, Graves' disease and thyroid issues, nobody ever said, oh, why don't you try this or that? It's just another autoimmune. It's just something that happens. 1 in 4 women will have thyroid issues sometime in their life. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. Just another medicine. So now I have to take thyroid hormone replacement for the rest of my life because my thyroid doesn't function on its own. And I was 30. I mean, that's a long time. You're going to live a long time. But at the time I was like, that's not a big deal. It's just what you do. So I was already on that. So that was my second medication that I was taking because I was taking the diuretic still. So, had babies. I gained a lot of weight with both of my daughters.
How were those pregnancies? Oh, do you mind telling us how those went?
No, I don't mind at all. So my first pregnancy with Maisie was a dream. It was wonderful. It was just perfect. I did gain probably 40 pounds. About 40 pounds. I didn't eat for 2 because they had stopped saying that around the time but I did not, was kind of no holds barred. So I did have we had a pretty traumatic birth experience. I ended up almost having an emergent C-section. I had to get induced. She was only 3 days overdue, but she was a big baby. She was turned a certain way. You know, that was not my birth plan, but finally I had been in labor so long, and there was meconium in my water. When it broke, it was dirty, and they were like, okay, it's too long. So I had her C-section, and she was 8:14. I really do think I was on the brink of gestational diabetes. But she was healthy, and she did have to stay in the NICU. It was her birth, and that after that was very hard because she had swallowed meconium. So they wanted to treat her preventatively for pneumonia. So she stayed, and we had to go home without her. And I mean, this is my first baby, and that part was very difficult, but we bonded, and it was fine, you know. And like I said, she's 17 now. She's my spitting image. So, but then with my second daughter, I lost weight pretty quickly, or pretty easily, after I had Maisie. I got pregnant about 2.5 years later with my youngest daughter, and I had a really difficult pregnancy with her. She was really fine. It was just me, and my body was like, what is this happening? And so I gained a lot of weight. I probably gained 50 pounds. I was enormous. And I carried her a lot differently than I had carried my first baby. So she was very low. And so I had to have, I was on bed rest twice. In the beginning, I had a treatment for my ear because I started having lots and lots of dizzy issues. So I was off for about a month while I went through those treatments, which are injections into your ear, you know. So that treatment kind of helped for a while. Then when we got towards the end of my pregnancy, like technically 9 months, she felt like she was going to come out. And so the doctor was like, okay, you can go on bed rest for the last 3 weeks. And so then I had a planned C-section with her because I had had such a traumatic experience, and that was the doctor and I talked about it. And so they took Sophie out of me, and I was like, I heard some angels singing, and it was just like wonderful. It was I felt so much better. And she was healthy, and she was 3 weeks early, and she was 8'3" at 3 weeks early, or 2.5 weeks early. She wasn't, premature or anything. But I really feel like I was borderline gestational diabetes. And it's just because I just ate junk, lots and lots of sugar. So, but I still, and I did nurse both of them, but I still didn't really have too much trouble losing that weight. I was never as thin as I was before I had kids, but I hadn't gained a lot of weight. So, then fast forward about 10 years, not 10 years, 5 years, 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, I started having so much trouble with my vertigo that I couldn't live with it anymore. I couldn't take care of my kids. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't keep my job. I got laid off. So I went on the internet and I found like a specialist for my inner ear. And I went and I was treatment resistant. I had tried everything. And I said, this is what I need you to do. And I need you to go in and drill out my inner ear so that it's just not going to work anymore. I couldn't hear out of it anymore because every time I'd have an episode, it would diminish my hearing. So it's not like I could hear out of that ear anyway. And the doctor, he's like, well, we have to try this treatment and we have to do a whole bunch of tests, because this is a major thing. I don't have a balance center on this side of my body anymore, plus the deafness. But I had already kind of figured out how to read lips a little bit because I had lived with it for so long. So I had that done in 2014. And that was a really good decision. That at least gave me my life back to where I could participate in my life, because I just couldn't do anything. I had to have people come and help me with my kids. My husband traveled for work. Like, he was in California and we were in the Midwest at the time. So I did that. And like I said, I got laid off. and I gained a lot of weight. I was approaching 40. I was under a lot of stress because I wasn't working. My life was completely different than I ever thought it would be. And so one day I just looked in the mirror and I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I was heavier at that time than I had been at my highest with my pregnancies. And I started, dieting, calorie restricting, eating healthy, eating lots of vegetables and that kind of thing. And then fast forward about, 10 years to January. So like I said, I've had issues with autoimmune illness for, different kinds. So in January, I had been meal prepping and I was eating really almost like a vegetarian, not on purpose, but almost a vegetarian diet with maybe just, white meat chicken, grilled chicken and eggs. I was eating no fatty red meat. And I had some type of a reaction where I ate something and I just thought I was having an allergic reaction. I mean, like my entire body got red. My throat did not swell, but like I was itching from here down, just like out of control. My chest was tight. And I was like, what the heck? I've eaten something that has caused me to have, this reaction. And I already knew about detox and elimination diets. I was familiar with that. And I thought, I'm going to do something like that. And so I go to Google and I type in elimination diet and I found Mikhaila Peterson and her story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. This is going to be it. And I thought, I'll do this. I really thought I'd only do it for 2 weeks to detox. But then I thought, okay, by then I'd found, Dr. Barry and everyone. So I thought, okay, I'll just do it for 30 days. And, I started losing weight. I lost a lot of inflammation. And now here we are 11 months later, almost 11 months. Yeah. And I've lost 30 pounds, almost all of my anxiety and depression is gone. I don't have headaches. I don't have allergies. I don't have, when I have inflammation, if I do have some inflammation, because I still have a couple of things, I heal from it much quicker than I did before. And I'm never hungry. I got fat adapted probably 4 or 5 weeks in. And that's the biggest thing. It's like I can eat and I don't get hungry because I had never experienced that. I'd always been hungry and like, oh, well, I got to eat more lettuce and spinach and kale. And I never liked vegetables and I never liked fruit. And so
I'm sorry, just the faces you made when you said lettuce and spinach and kale. I'm like, me too, girl, me too. That's how I feel about it.
And when I started this, I never thought that it would be the way I turn, my life now. I thought it was a diet and that had an end goal. I always thought about that. And so I can't believe I never would have thought last year, I never would have thought that food had such an impact on everything. But now it's like the wool has been pulled away from my eyes. And now I'm like, oh, of course it's what matters most, so.
Yeah, that's I have a similar story. I found Mikhaila Peterson too.
Yeah.
She was my
same.
first little blip where I was like, oh, what is that? So you were saying a little bit ago that you started the carnivore diet as an end goal. So you didn't think you were going to do it forever, right?
No.
Is that what I was hearing?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I thought, and I had dates written down like, okay, this is 2 weeks. Okay. This is 30 days. And then I think I saw Nisha, Dr. Barry's wife, say something about try it for 90 days, do like BBB&E for 90 days. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. Because, by 30 days, I felt so much better and I had lost weight, which was the end, that was my goal at the time, was to lose weight and be detoxed from whatever reaction I had from those daggone chia seeds and almond milk and all that. You know, it was all of that stuff. So that just doesn't, you know,
We
that
have a
just
bunch
doesn't
of
work for me.
people. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I thought you were finished with your sentence there, but
No,
we
it's
have,
okay.
we have a bunch of people wanting to say hello. Can I put some of those up on the screen?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So we have Karen here from Our Sufficient Life. She said, hello, everyone, and love that intro. Thank you so much for that. Yes, we have a new intro. I hope you all could see it. If not, go check the replay.
It's so good. I love it. I watched it like 5 times when Christy first sent it to me because I was like freaking out. It's so cool.
It was fun
Hey,
today. So Deb Olson says, hello, ladies. So hello, Deb. We have Gail Ivy here saying howdy.
Thank you.
Howdy.
And Our Sufficient Life is welcoming you to the show, Haley. So welcome.
Thank you.
And Gail also, hey, Haley, nice to see you here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And we got a roar. Yes, I love seeing those. Ricky Lee is here waving and smiling at us. And Lady Fritzader says hello there, Christy, Ellie, and Haley. And while she is listening, she is cleaning her basement. So yeah, sad now, happy later. I don't know. You'll be feeling so much better. Karen Harrington says hello to Christy and all. Well, hello there, Karen.
Welcome.
And My Weight Loss Life says, nice to see you on the line, Allison.
Thank you. It's nice to see you.
This is Cami. So from Last Day of Normal, her channel is fantastic. She's a fellow sprinter. Those of you that know that I am sprinting, she's a fellow sprinter, and go check out her channel if you don't know about that. But she'll be on Lioness in a couple of months, so look out for that. And then so this was when you were talking about the wool being pulled away from your eyes, and so Our Sufficient Life says, I feel like that too, Allison. Suddenly I can see.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you doing, Haley? Are you feeling good so far?
I'm doing okay. I hope everyone thinks I'm doing okay. I don't know.
You're doing awesome.
The jury is out.
So Allison, I had a question for you. When your symptoms of your, did you say Meniere's, right, in your ear, when it just became so debilitating, are you talking about like, because you said you had these episodes, but they wouldn't be super frequent, and you just thought, oh, you got to go lay in a dark room for 6 hours, get a migraine, and then get back to your life. Was that just happening like on the daily?
Yes. So yeah, I was diagnosed at 25, but as I got older, probably my hormones changed, and then I was eating terribly. I tried all these treatments, like it was steroids, oral steroids. Then it was steroid injections. I had a surgery before that with a shunt. So, and nothing would ever stick. So it would work for a little bit, and okay, I feel great. But then one day I would just, be stressed or eat a bunch of junk food, processed food, and I would just start spinning, or I'd get a sinus infection. I got a lot of sinus infections. I've always been really prone to that. And something would happen and set me off. And it was never something that I could be like, okay, I'm going to get dizzy. It would just happen. It happened in every situation you can imagine. It would happen when I was asleep. I'd start dreaming about like being on the worst roller coaster you've ever been on. And it was just crazy. And so when I was right before I had my surgery, the year before I'd had a set of treatment that worked really well. A set of injections, and they had worked for a long time. And then on January 1st of 2014, I was at a lunch with friends, and I had a sinus infection, and I went into the bathroom to blow my nose because we were at a restaurant, and I almost fell down because I got so dizzy. And thank goodness my husband was there, and he had driven us over there because I was so sick. And from that moment until April 21st is when I had my surgery, I was in a constant state of either being dizzy and sick, like, because I would always throw up. It's such a debilitating and intense vertigo. You can't do anything. And I just couldn't get out of the cycle, because then I'd be stressed afterwards. I'd have a migraine, and I'd be upset because I couldn't take care of my kids. And I couldn't spend time with my family. I couldn't do anything. And then I'd be, okay, I'd come out of it, but then I'd be panicked that it was going to happen at any moment. So I had, terrible anxiety. And I just could not get out of that cycle. And I thought, I can't live this way. I can't. And then I started having another symptom, which is called nystagmus. It's when your eyes rapidly move back and forth. And so I was developing new symptoms, and I had done every other treatment. And I was just like, I just could not get out of that cycle because stress, of course, aggravates it. Stress. And I was highly stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just couldn't manage it anymore. And it was miserable. I was miserable.
So with your vertigo, do you think this is, because I really don't know, is this hereditary? Like, do you think you had a genetic predisposition for it, or do you think it was mostly due to your diet and like environmental reasons?
Well, they don't know what causes it. It's not really genetically, that I've heard, it's not really genetically linked. They usually say it's idiopathic, which just means unknown source,
They don't know.
or autoimmune. Your body's attacking itself. So I can't do, and then I have tinnitus, which is intense ringing in my ear. So interestingly, I asked the doctor, because I'm totally deaf in my left ear. I said, so does that mean the tinnitus will go away? And he said, no, it's like a head noise, or it's like a brain signal or something. They don't really know a lot about it, but I still have it to this day, So I can't do anything to see if it would help Meniere's, but I know that diet would help some, because it's inflammation inside your inner ear. It's where inside your inner ear, I forget what it's called, in that labyrinth type area, fluid gets trapped, and it kind of like it gets inflamed. And so I really think that diet would really help, but I don't know anybody that has Meniere's, because it's not very common. It's not as uncommon as when I first had it. I was really, really young to develop it. It's usually older people, like in their 50s or 40s. And I don't know anybody that has it to, say, hey, why don't you try this? Because the standard of care when you first present with a diagnosis of Meniere's, because there's no definitive testing. So a lot of people go for years and the doctor's like, well, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. It's, it's an invisible illness too. So they still tell you the standard of care is diuretic medication, low salt diet, no caffeine, and no alcohol. And I looked at the website the other day for the Meniere Society, and they still say low salt diet, because they don't even take into consideration nutritional, or dietary recommendations.
So you also said that, sorry, Haley, you also said that carnivore helped with your anxiety and depression. And you also mentioned your anxiety and depression were sort of linked to your symptoms of Meniere's. Did you have that before as well, and the Meniere's made it worse? Or was the anxiety and depression just a result of that only?
I've always been kind of an anxious person, with intrusive thoughts, anxiety, that kind of thing, since I was in my 20s. The depression and anxiety, that was really exacerbated by the severity of the Meniere's. And then after I was treated for that and had surgery, I don't remember my anxiety it did get a little bit better. But then from about the time I turned 40, so that was about 2015, I started having really high anxiety, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And it was really intrusive. Probably by 2018 and definitely by 2020, it was just off the charts. And I wasn't working outside the home and for 5 years. And so it was just off the charts. but I didn't seek any kind of help for that. I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't try any medications for that, but I was having a lot of trouble falling asleep because I'd have, all these intrusive thoughts. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious because I had some anxiety too, but it just creeped up on me so slowly. I couldn't even say like when it started. So I was just curious,
Yeah.
if that was something you'd always had, or if,
Yeah.
I mean, I can certainly see why the Menieres would make you feel
Yeah.
more anxious and more depressed for sure.
Yeah.
So, Alison, a little earlier you mentioned when you went into the doctor, they weren't, they were basically saying, we don't know what to do for you.
Yeah.
It's an invisible illness. I think you were referring to the ear issue. Is that what you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay. So I wanted to know, how did that affect your social life? Because I also experienced an autoimmune disease that was invisible. People didn't know that I was suffering with that. So I was wondering if you could kind of expound upon, on a daily basis maybe, or in social situations, how it affected you, or even mentally how it affected you if you weren't experiencing it in that moment.
Yeah. So after I had the girls and went back to work, so my youngest was probably about 18 to 20 months when I went back to work. And it didn't really affect me socially up until then. It was just something that would happen occasionally from the time I was diagnosed in my mid-20s until my mid-30s. So I could pretty easily explain it away. Oh, I got to go, that kind of thing didn't really affect me. But then when I went back to work, I realized I couldn't hear very well. Like I could not hear people talking, which is a stressor. I did not hear, I didn't realize my hearing had gone downhill like that. But I also at the same time realized I could kind of read lips. If somebody was in front of me, I could kind of figure out what they were saying. So it started to take a toll on me and my feelings of like self-worth, because nobody could understand what was wrong with me. Most people had not even heard of Meniere's disease. I think it's a little more heard of now, but I looked fine. It would be 1 minute I would be sitting here and I could look over my shoulder and then look back around and be like, holy moly. And I mean, I would start throwing up. I couldn't control, it was going to happen. So people would have to drive me home from work. I'd have to leave work early. They'd have to pick up my kids, bring them home. There's like whole routine, and I had this emergency plan, and that takes a toll on you mentally, especially when you have little kids, and it's like someone else is giving my children a bath, and I can hear them and I'm aware of everything going on. So that really took a toll on my self-worth and my anxiety like this. And people are going to think that I'm drunk. That's a very common, misconception about people that have, especially if it's a balance issue. I would walk and I'd have to like be hunched over and like my eyes on like a specific point, because I'd shuffle because, it was just everything my brain could do to keep my, body moving. And I couldn't like have a conversation. I could talk, but it's similar to what's happening in my brain. What was happening in my brain was similar to sometimes what people go through if they're having a seizure. It's like, I know what's happening. I can talk to you, but I cannot have a conversation with you and end up, because my brain is trying so hard. And so that just really took a toll. And, it did affect me socially, and it did affect some of my relationships. And then, it was really difficult.
So it seems like you were really codependent. You had to really rely on your husband and extended family. So since you've been on carnivore, how has it felt to get some of that independence back and being able to take charge in your life?
Yeah, that's been great to not have to rely on anybody, to be independent. And so all of that went away. That part went away after I had my surgery and after I got better from that. But the last 5 years, it's this, this is what's wrong with me. Let me go to the doctor. This is what's wrong with me. I like, now that I've been doing carnivore, I'm reliant on myself. I don't need to go to the doctor, for this or that. And I'm just much more confident in handling, what is going on with me, So I've done a lot of research and watched a lot of videos and read a lot of books about, what you need to look for to be metabolically healthy and how important that is and for, longevity. Now that I'm older, I have to think about longevity.
Absolutely. So when you went carnivore, did you have any adaptation symptoms? Was it, first of all, did you just go cold turkey? Did you ease your way in? Did you have adaptation symptoms? And if so, like, why did you keep going? Like, were you experiencing benefits quickly or
Yes.
what was going on with that?
Yes. So Sunday night, I had meal prepped and I'd been drinking red wine too. I used to drink a lot of red wine. And the next day I was cold turkey. I was meat only on that Monday after I had that reaction to something I had eaten. And I didn't really have too bad of adaptation type symptoms. I did have about 3 days at the most where I felt lethargic and I didn't feel great. I had headache, that kind of thing. But I'd always had headaches. So, I was like, okay. But it was in February and we'd had this like freak cold spell with ice and stuff. And that's not common where I live. And so I was able to just lay at home, lay on the couch and get through it. And it didn't last that long. But I did not ease into it. I'm not that kind of a person. If I decide I'm going to do something, it's a full bore. It's the whole way. And I had committed in my mind, I had committed to doing it for at least, like I said, at the beginning, it was 14 days. And then I was like, and I quickly was like, oh, well, I got to do this for a month. I got to do this for 30 days. So I had experienced already a little bit of weight loss. I lost water weight, inflammation flushed really fast. And I felt pretty good. And I thought, well, I want to see where this takes me. So that's.
Yeah, I pretty much went cold turkey too. And, I know it's different for everyone, but yeah, it certainly can be a little bit shocking. But at the same time as maybe you're having those symptoms, I also experienced that very quick lowering of inflammation, which you kind of got to balance the pros and cons of going cold turkey because it's probably not right for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If I had to do it again, I would ease a little bit of an ease into it, just because I did end up having some oxalate dumping that I know is an oxalate like skin issue. Very, very itchy red bumps on my legs that were there one day and like 3 days later completely gone. And it was the wildest thing. So I would say to ease into it. I might ease into it if I was going to do it again, but
Gail says my friend Kathy has Meniere's and she's doing carnivore and it seems like it helps.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that because I just feel like it would really help. It might not cure it or take it away completely, but at least maybe have, make it a lot more manageable. So that's very good to know.
Maybe save somebody's hearing. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Hopefully. Yeah. My friend Renee popped in. Hi, Renee. Nice to see you in here. Okay, this is for me. Karen
and me too.
Hey, Christy, hubby actually picked it out. So Karen, I need to hear as soon as you cook that picanha, how you liked it. Allison, have you tried picanha?
No, not yet. It's on my list. I know.
I haven't tried it either.
Okay, good.
List as long as my arm, so I get it. But look at Ellie, because I convinced her over here. I've converted her.
Yep.
I'm on Team Picanha.
Picanha, that's right. Okay, so since you haven't tried picanha, then what is your favorite cut of meat? I'll just ask that right now.
Okay, yeah, it's ribeye. It is ribeye. Yeah. And it wasn't in the beginning, of course, I hear this a lot, but I could never eat a lot of meat. I could never eat all meat. I could never do that. I didn't eat a lot of meat. I didn't like the way, fatty meat really tasted. We never ate the fat, And so when I first started, I liked leaner cuts, strip in the very beginning. And now I do not like strip at all. I know, I want a ribeye, but we don't eat steak maybe once or twice a week. Maybe that's probably once a week on average. So, I always preferred my carbs, I always wanted a hamburger so I could eat the bun.
I was carb obsessed too. Oh man.
Yeah.
I had a question. So I remember in one of your videos you mentioned that you didn't like cooking large, complicated meals. Like, how have your meal times changed now? Like you mentioned you have steak once or twice a week, but what else? Like, how is that going?
Yeah, it's going really well. That's one of my favorite things because I always got stressed about having, well, we got to have this big meal. And, I that always stressed me out. It almost gives me hives just thinking about it because, everybody was like, no, I don't like that. I don't want to eat that. And it was just so much pressure. I always felt like that. So, and my mom was not, a big meal. She was a nurse. So we didn't have big meals either. So I just wasn't used to that. So now mealtime is a cinch. I don't dread it like I always did. We eat a lot of hamburgers and bacon. I meal prep bacon every weekend so my kids can take that to school. And we don't have meals. We just have meat. Meatballs and hamburger patties and bacon and eggs and cheeseburger
Sounds
soup.
about right.
Yeah, I do follow. Yeah, I do follow Courtney, and I have tried several of the easy recipes because they're super easy. If it's got 4 or 5 ingredients, no big deal. Different type. Heavy cream, butter, meat, cheese, that kind of thing. I can do that, and I don't have a problem with it. I do casserole, like a carnivore casserole, that kind of thing. But it's just so much easier, and it's so much less. I just dread it so much less that it's a cinch now. It's easy. It's a task to get done, and let's do it. Let's just get it over with.
I'm popping this one right up here. Last Day of Normal says, easy is why I love carnivore. Thank you. I think it was Courtney last week who said it's easy because you just make one thing.
Right. Yeah.
You're not doing the sides. Yeah. So absolutely. I love easy. So when you say you don't have meals, is it just because everyone just kind of eats when they're hungry? Like, I don't really have scheduled meal times for myself anymore.
Yeah.
Because I just eat when I'm hungry 1 or 2 times a day, just depending on when I'm hungry. And so that's usually how it goes for me. Is that why? Do you just have a bunch of stuff prepped?
Pretty much, yeah. My youngest loves eggs and bacon. So I just, when she wants, we don't snack a lot anymore. My kids still snack a little bit. And they do have a couple junky things in the house. But, I'm like, here's, what do you want? We have steak and we share them. We let them have some of our steak, or, we get several steaks, and then that's it for the month. And they eat steak. They don't love just burger patties, so they like the casseroles. But if I go in the kitchen and make, in the morning, I try to eat 5 eggs in the morning. That really fills me up. And I could not eat a lot. It took me months to be able to eat a lot because I just hadn't done it for so long. But now I can eat 5 eggs, and it's like, yes, I can do it now. And so I'll make them breakfast, which is just eggs and bacon, and then they take their lunch, and then when we get home, it's usually, all right, we're going to eat, and that's it. So we're all together during mealtime, but it's just not very traditional, and it's usually centered around when I get hungry.
So did your kids adapt to this pretty easy? Like, from what you're saying, that, they just are eating carnivore now. I'm just kind of inferring that from what you said. So correct me if I'm wrong, but did they, what was that changeover like for them, eating so much more meat?
It's been a process. It's a process. So my oldest daughter's 17, has a job, has a driver's license. And so they do still eat. They're probably like keto, like I said, they're still getting some things, but I don't buy vegetables and I don't buy fruit. And I did a couple months ago. I said, do you want some of that? And they said, oh yeah, we want some, green peppers, bell peppers. And so I bought them and they sat in my fridge for 2 months. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. You guys didn't even eat them. They just sat there. So we do buy a couple of different snack things for them. But because my kids are teenagers and I can't really control them, what they eat as much as if they were really little, we talk a lot about food is for this purpose and you can enjoy it and like it and it can taste great, but this is what you need to eat. And please prioritize your protein. Please eat your protein first and don't be afraid to eat fat. Here's some butter, eat some butter. No, but don't be afraid of it. Fat, butter doesn't make you fat, that kind of thing. Fat doesn't make you fat. Don't eat a bunch of junk, and they have to figure that out for themselves. They still have, like I said, they still have a little bit of junk food. They did have a little bit of candy around Halloween, but we did a candy switch, and because they were not super thrilled about doing that. But I was like, you don't need 6 pounds of candy. They got a lot. And they're like, yeah, you're right. So they got to keep a little, and then they turned in some, candy switch, which I had not ever really heard of. And they got a gift instead. But I said, listen, you just need to know what the purpose of food is. And food is for, fueling your body. And so it's not been like super smooth, but it has not been the worst thing ever. It's not been the hardest thing that I've ever done.
Yeah. So Ellie, she said it. She said bite butter. Did you hear that? She didn't say bite butter, but she talked about let's just eat some butter. So Haley, I have to know because you're new here. It's my thing. Bite butter. Hashtag bite butter. Do you just
Hashtag bite butter.
go and bite butter?
Yes, that's so funny because
I knew I liked you.
Yes, my mom used to do that. And so it stuck with me, even though we didn't eat carnivore or anything.
Yeah.
And when she would be making cookies, she would slice off some of the cold butter and eat it. And I'm like, that's really tasty because I would do it too. Mm-hmm. And now my kids ask because I'll be like, oh, I'm a little bit hungry, but I want to wait a minute. So I'll cut some off and my kids will be like, hey, can we have some? And they'll want some. I'm like, okay. And I'll hand it to him. And to be honest, Garrett thought I was nuts for years for snacking on butter for years.
When they does it now. Does he do it now though?
We haven't gotten to the snacking part yet, but he does put it a dab of it on top of eggs or steak now, but we'll get there.
There you go.
Buy butter soon. It's not going to take him long.
Yeah.
So my friend Nia is here and she says, I love the no meal thing. And that's similar to what we do too. Breakfast is our family mealtime due to our schedule. And then my littles and I just eat whenever we're hungry the rest of the day. So yeah, I hear you on that. That's a great way to do it. So Alison, I wanted to ask you because we asked you what are some of the things about this way of eating that you're sort of passionate about? And I feel like some of the things you touched on. So you had said mental health improvement. You touched on that. You had said chronic illness improvement. You touched on that. But you also said for metabolic health for longevity. Can you talk about that for a minute for us?
Sure. Yeah. So this might be tough, but last year my dad died suddenly in February, and we found out he had a heart attack. He had a massive heart attack, and thank you. And so after that happened, now my dad was not metabolically healthy. He wasn't, but at the time we didn't know that, and we didn't realize that what had happened. So obviously, but about 6 or 8 months after his passing, I thought, it was kind of a wake up call because, at that time I was about 46, maybe I just turned 47. And I thought I have got to get healthy. I have to be around for my kids and, my grandkids that eventually will be here. So I thought I don't want to be in my mid to late 60s and, have a heart attack. My dad was 69 when he died. And then, I want to be able to do things, and I need to lose weight, because at the time I just thought losing weight was the goal. So since starting and having all of these improvements with, mental health and physical health, and then I started learning about, the cholesterol myths. So, and then, the blood pressure, hypertension, and this and that. And I started listening to podcasts about longevity, and I watched this podcast with Chris Williamson, which is Modern Wisdom, and Dr. Peter Attia. And he asked Chris, he's like, how long do you want to live? What do you want to be able to do when you're that age? And this, he said, I want to live to be 90 or 95, and I want to be able to walk my dog. And he's like, well, this is what you need to do. You need to make sure you're metabolically healthy. And I just started thinking about that. And my mother's mother, my grandmother, she lived until she was 88, and she passed away at home. And I want to be able to do things. And she lived independently until that time. And I want to live. I see a lot of people in their mid 60s and, like my parents' age or early 70s, my in-laws. And I just don't want to be not able to do things because, oh, well, it's, I'm older. It's just the way it goes now, And so I just really started thinking about longevity. And I want to make sure that I'm metabolically healthy, and that, because I don't want to have a heart attack or stroke or any of that kind of stuff,
So
or
what
cancer.
I'm hearing, oh yeah, for sure. What I'm hearing is that your why perhaps was that you wanted to outlive those people that you thought maybe were gone too soon. So that's a really good why, to want to be here as absolutely long as possible, especially to see those grandbabies, right?
Yes.
Is that the goal?
Yes, for sure.
That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's time to spin a meaty question. What do you ladies?
Do it.
All right. So I'm going to bring up the meaty question wheel here. We're going to give it a spin. And we're going to see what we can come up with here, what we can hunt down here for Alison.
Look at it go.
Ooh. Boom. Okay, we have hunted down a mini question for you. So here it is. Do you believe that a carnivore diet is suitable for everyone, or do you think it's a more individualized approach?
I do think it may be, I think carnivore can be a spectrum. I don't think you have to be dogmatic. I think it's probably beneficial for most people, but on that spectrum, you got to figure out what works for you and what is sustainable. What are you going to stick to? That kind of thing. I don't think that it does anybody any good to be dogmatic. So I drink coffee. I'm not going to, I just don't feel like I need to give it up. But other than that, I'm pretty strict, but that doesn't mean someone else needs to be. Like my husband is not nearly as strict as me, but he's still carnivore. So that's how I feel about that. Yeah.
Great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I probably will never be the person to just have like beef and water. I can't. That's not going to be me.
Yeah.
I tried that.
Give up my coffee.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say never.
Yeah.
Like if I think it's starting to make me feel bad in some way, I'll give it up. Like I gave up the broccoli or whatever. You know, but for me right now, I'm enjoying my life. Ellie's laughing because I said I gave up.
I think coffee's a lot better than broccoli. Just
right. Coffee, broccoli. Anyway, lots of people give up coffee. Like my friend Robin, who just popped in. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
Robin gave up her coffee, and she is doing awesome and good for her. Like I don't begrudge anybody that wants to make those changes for themselves. If it's beneficial for you, do it. I'm doing what is sustainable for me, but exactly what you said, Alison, like I'm still enjoying my life. Like I'm not, I don't feel restricted in any way. So
well, and
yeah, I love that
any
answer.
little change that you can make, if you swap out the rice for something, animal based, and still have the veggies on there or whatever, like that's going to benefit your health too. So
Absolutely.
we shouldn't work on perfection. It should be little baby steps, right? And eventually we'll get to where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can constantly experiment. That's what I like to do. A few months ago, I tried really high fat, and it felt good. But then one day I did not feel so good, and I started having like aversions, and it finally kind of clicked. I was having too much fat, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I figured it out. I like doing some of those little experiments, and so I'm not going to say I'll never stop drinking coffee, but it's unlikely. And I try not to. I do not eat a lot of dairy. I do have dairy, but I don't do a lot, and I don't do a lot of heavy cream. So, it's just, you've got to figure out something that you can sustain for a long time, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Ellie, did you want to show off Allison's fabulous channel? I've been enjoying some of your videos in recent days, Allison. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
But of course, come with me.
Let's
We're
go
going
on
to
a
magical
journey.
place. A magical place called Alison Johnson. 6710.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I tried to change my handle on like 4 months ago on YouTube to match my Instagram handle, but it was taken. So it is what it is. The YouTube page is what it is right there. But on Instagram,
it's beautiful. I think you're very good at informing those that probably need the information the most. You come from a place like a realistic place, a down-to-earth place. I love your thumbnails. They're really good. Very colorful, and you know exactly what you're going to be getting into because you're not afraid to, go easy on them. You let them know, you tell them the truth. And so I encourage everybody to come and subscribe to Allison's channel. Please, please, please. Thank you. Thank you.
yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we got to support these, all of us, these little, because we're the ones that have that bigger voice for that people can see how we implement things and see how we're doing it, and we're not perfect. And I think that's really important for people to experience.
Yeah, the doctors for sure help me a lot, right? With all the stuff I don't know. Like I say it all the time, I'm not a medical professional, but it's channels like Haley's and Allison's and Ellie's that help me like actually incorporate it into my life. And then like, if I had something going on, I could relate to a real person. I could find somebody that also experienced the same thing and, get advice on, their experience. So absolutely, I agree. We're getting some people some subs. So Our Sufficient Life has subscribed to Allison and Haley. Mike Shaw TV is all subbed up. So thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful family that we're making here on the carnivore YouTube space, because it's one thing to be carnivore and then it's another thing to be a carnivore content creator. And I feel like, you learn a lot on this platform. Like you're getting new skills when you're creating videos that you probably would have never thought that you would be able to do with your previous and current autoimmune conditions. So you're doing great.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Ladies, this has been fun. We have under a minute left, and I think that can only mean one thing.
I think
we need to everybody.
Roar. Okay.
Ready? Whoa, she is ready. Look at Allison. Okay, Ellie, you're the countdown.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
Thank you so much to everybody.
I was gonna hate roaring.
Put those roars in the comments, you guys. We want to hear them.
You can meow also if you're a kitten.
Oh, thank you, Nia. Nia's roaring.
Yeah, she loved the roar.
Robin, sub to you, Allison.
Thank you, Robin.
Drama. She's awesome.
We're getting a whole bunch of roars.
Yes, look at them all. All right, we do this every time. That was a good idea. Put those roars in the chat. Mike Shaw, where are you? That is not a roar, dude. That's not a roar, Mark.
Yeah, we need those roars from the lions. Come on,
Rick,
lions.
put his lion
Get
in
in
there.
there.
Yes, give me a lion roar. Thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you,
There
Mark.
we go. I'm like,
You can come out of detention
Give
now.
a paw.
Oh, Renee's going to growl. Okay, Renee, thank you for the growl.
Nice.
And Ryan is a feline, so she has a really good roar. I know that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We're so happy you guys were all
Thank you.
here. Watch the replay later. If you came in late, check out our new intro and put a comment. Maybe you could be next week's Roar of the Week. You just never know. So it's been fun. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
See you next week.
Good night.